The first sign that something was wrong came when my wife started waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. For 15 years of marriage, Lisa had been the kind of person who hit the snooze button 3 times and considered 8 a.m. an early start. The idea of her voluntarily getting up before dawn to exercise was so out of character that I initially wondered if she was having some kind of midlife crisis. My name is Mark Thompson, and at 43 years old, I thought I knew everything there was to know about my wife. We'd been together since college, married for 15 years, and had built what I believed was a solid, predictable life together. I worked as a financial advisor. Lisa was a marketing manager at a local advertising agency, and we lived in a comfortable suburban home with our 2 children, Sophie and Jake. But apparently, I didn't know Lisa as well as I thought. The gym obsession started in January, right after New Year's. Lisa announced that she was finally going to get serious about fitness and had joined CrossFit Meridian, an upscale gym about 20 minutes from our house. She'd signed up for the 6 a.m. classes, she explained, because it was the only time that fit her schedule. At first, I was supportive. Lisa had been talking about getting back in shape for years, and I encouraged her new commitment to health and fitness. I even offered to join her, but she quickly dismissed the idea, saying she needed this time for herself and didn't want the pressure of working out with her husband. Within a few weeks, the changes in Lisa's behavior became impossible to ignore. She was spending more money on workout clothes than she'd ever spent on regular clothes. She bought expensive athletic wear, protein supplements, and even hired a nutritionist. She started meal prepping on Sundays, preparing elaborate healthy meals that she claimed were part of her new fitness regimen. But the most noticeable change was in her appearance and demeanor. Lisa was losing weight, toning up, and carrying herself with a confidence I hadn't seen in years. She was also more secretive about her phone, taking calls in private and guarding her text messages like state secrets. The red flags were multiplying, but I tried to convince myself that I was being paranoid. Lisa was just going through a positive transformation, I told myself. She was finally taking care of herself, and I should be happy for her. Then I found the credit card statement. It was a Tuesday evening in March, and I was organizing our monthly bills when I noticed charges I didn't recognize. There were multiple payments to CrossFit Meridian, far more than the monthly membership fee Lisa had mentioned. There were charges at expensive restaurants during lunch hours when Lisa claimed to be at work. There were purchases at Victoria's Secret, a store Lisa hadn't shopped at in years. Most suspicious were the hotel charges. 3 different hotels in our city, all during weekday afternoons, all for amounts that suggested short stays rather than overnight visits. I confronted Lisa about the charges that evening, trying to keep my tone casual and non-accusatory. She had explanations for everything, of course. The extra gym charges were for personal training sessions she'd forgotten to mention. The restaurant charges were for business lunches with clients. The lingerie was a surprise she was planning for our anniversary. The hotel charges were for a work conference that had required day-use meeting rooms. Each explanation was plausible on its own, but together they painted a picture of deception that I could no longer ignore. I decided to investigate. The next morning, after Lisa left for her 6 a.m. workout, I drove to CrossFit Meridian. I parked across the street and waited, feeling like a private investigator in a bad movie. At 6:15, I saw Lisa's car in the parking lot, confirming that she was actually at the gym. But I also noticed something else. She was talking to a man by the entrance, and their body language suggested a familiarity that went beyond casual gym friendship. The man was tall, muscular, and probably in his early 30s. He had the kind of physique that screamed personal trainer or fitness instructor. As I watched, he put his hand on Lisa's lower back in a gesture that was far too intimate for a professional relationship. I had found Lisa's lover. Over the next several days, I conducted surveillance on my own wife, learning the patterns of her deception. Lisa was indeed going to CrossFit Meridian, but she was also meeting this man, whose name I learned was Jake Morrison, at hotels, restaurants, and even at his apartment during her supposed lunch breaks. Jake Morrison was 29 years old, a former college athlete who worked as a personal trainer and fitness instructor at CrossFit Meridian. He was everything I wasn't: young, muscular, and single. He drove a motorcycle, lived in a trendy downtown loft, and had the kind of carefree lifestyle that Lisa had given up when she married me and started a family. The affair had been going on for at least 2 months, possibly longer. Lisa had been using her gym membership as cover for regular meetings with Jake, and she'd been financing their relationship with our joint credit cards. She was living a double life, playing the role of devoted wife and mother at home while pursuing a passionate affair with a man 15 years younger than her. The betrayal was devastating, but what made it worse was the systematic nature of Lisa's deception. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a spontaneous mistake. She had carefully planned and executed an elaborate scheme to cheat on me while maintaining the appearance of a committed marriage. But Lisa had made one crucial error in her planning. She had underestimated the man she was betraying. As a financial advisor, I had spent my career analyzing patterns, identifying risks, and developing strategies to protect my clients' assets. I understood the importance of documentation, the value of evidence, and the power of strategic planning. I decided to use those skills to expose Lisa's affair in a way that would be both devastating and undeniable. The plan I developed was methodical and comprehensive. I would gather irrefutable evidence of Lisa's infidelity, document the financial impact of her deception, and create a moment of revelation that would expose her betrayal to everyone who mattered in our lives. Phase 1 involved comprehensive surveillance and documentation. I hired a private investigator to follow Lisa when I couldn't, and I used GPS tracking to monitor her movements. I documented her meetings with Jake, photographed them together, and recorded their intimate behavior in public places. The evidence was overwhelming. I had photos of Lisa and Jake kissing in restaurant parking lots, holding hands while walking through downtown, and entering and leaving hotels together. I had credit card records showing that Lisa had been paying for their dates, their hotel rooms, and even gifts for Jake. I had phone records showing hundreds of text messages and calls between them during work hours. But I didn't stop at just documenting the affair. I also investigated the broader impact of Lisa's deception on our family and finances. I discovered that she'd been using our joint accounts to fund her relationship with Jake, spending thousands of dollars on their affair while claiming we needed to cut back on family expenses. More damaging was the discovery that Lisa had been planning to leave me for Jake. I found evidence that she'd been consulting with a divorce attorney, researching custody laws, and calculating how much she could expect to receive in a settlement. She'd been documenting my work schedule, my travel, and my involvement in our children's lives, building a case that would paint me as an absent father and neglectful husband. Lisa wasn't just having an affair. She was preparing to destroy our family and take half of everything we'd built together while positioning herself for a new life with Jake. Phase 2 involved understanding the full scope of Lisa's betrayal and Jake's role in it. Through careful investigation, I learned that Jake had a pattern of targeting married women at the gym. Lisa wasn't his first affair with a client. He'd been involved with at least 2 other married women over the past year, both of whom had left their husbands for him before he eventually moved on to new conquests. Jake Morrison was a predator who specialized in seducing vulnerable married women who were looking for excitement and validation. He would identify women who seemed unhappy or unfulfilled in their marriages, then gradually escalate from professional trainer to confidant to lover. He was skilled at making women feel special and desired, convincing them that they deserved better than their boring suburban lives. Lisa had fallen for his routine completely. She believed that Jake was genuinely in love with her, that their relationship was special and meaningful. She had no idea that she was just another conquest in his pattern of seducing and discarding married women. The most infuriating discovery was that Jake had been bragging about his affair with Lisa to other trainers at the gym. I learned this from the private investigator who had posed as a potential client and overheard conversations about Jake's MILF conquest and his plans to upgrade to a younger model once he got bored with Lisa. Lisa was risking everything for a man who saw her as nothing more than a temporary diversion, a middle-aged woman who was useful for expensive dinners and hotel rooms but not worth a serious commitment. Phase 3 involved planning the revelation that would expose Lisa's affair to everyone who mattered. I couldn't simply confront her privately. She was too skilled at manipulation and deception to be trusted with a quiet conversation. I needed to create a moment that would be undeniable, public, and devastating. The opportunity came in the form of our 15th wedding anniversary. Lisa had been planning a celebration, suggesting we renew our vows in a small ceremony with family and friends. She'd presented it as a romantic gesture, a way to reaffirm our commitment to each other after 15 years of marriage. What she didn't know was that I understood her real motivation. The vow renewal was meant to be a farewell performance, a final act of deception before she filed for divorce and left me for Jake. She wanted to create the appearance of a loving wife who had tried to save her marriage, someone who could claim that despite her best efforts, our relationship had simply grown apart. I agreed to the vow renewal, but I had my own plans for the ceremony. Working with the same attention to detail I brought to my financial planning, I began preparing an event that would expose Lisa's betrayal to our family, friends, and community. I booked the same venue where we'd been married 15 years earlier, hired a photographer to document the event, and invited everyone who mattered to both of us. But I also prepared a special presentation that would be the centerpiece of the evening, a slideshow that Lisa believed would showcase our 15 years of marriage through photographs and memories. She'd even helped me select some of the images, pointing out her favorite moments from our life together. What Lisa didn't know was that I'd been creating a very different kind of slideshow, one that would tell the true story of our marriage's final months. The vow renewal ceremony was held on a beautiful Saturday evening in May, exactly 15 years after our original wedding. The venue was decorated with flowers and candles, creating the romantic atmosphere that Lisa had requested. Our families were there, along with close friends and colleagues who'd been part of our lives for years. Lisa looked beautiful in a new dress that I later learned Jake had helped her select. She played the role of the devoted wife perfectly, speaking eloquently about our journey together and the importance of commitment and trust in marriage. During the reception, I stood to give what everyone expected would be a heartfelt speech about our marriage and our future together. Instead, I announced that I had prepared a special slideshow that would tell the story of our relationship through photographs. The lights dimmed, and the large screen behind me came to life. The first images were exactly what the guests expected: photos from our wedding day, early years of marriage, the birth of our children, family vacations, and milestone celebrations. Lisa smiled as she watched, probably thinking about how this performance would help her narrative when she eventually filed for divorce. But then the slideshow took a different turn. The next series of images showed Lisa at CrossFit Meridian, working out with Jake and behaving like a woman in the early stages of romance. The room fell silent as people tried to process what they were seeing. The following slides documented Lisa's affair in chronological order: romantic dinners, hotel meetings, intimate moments, and expensive gifts that I hadn't provided. Each image was time-stamped and location tagged, creating an undeniable record of her deception. The slideshow also revealed the financial aspects of Lisa's betrayal: credit card statements showing charges for hotels and restaurants during times when she claimed to be at work or the gym, receipts for expensive clothing and gifts that weren't for our family, and evidence of her consultations with a divorce attorney. The final section of the slideshow exposed Jake Morrison's pattern of seducing married women, including photos of him with his previous conquests and audio recordings of him bragging about his affairs to other gym employees. The last slide was a simple message: Lisa has been having an affair with Jake Morrison for 4 months. She has been planning to leave our marriage while pretending to work on renewing our vows. This is not the anniversary celebration she expected, but it is the truth she deserves to face. The room was in complete silence. Lisa sat frozen in her chair, her face white with shock and horror, as she realized that her carefully constructed deception had been exposed to everyone who mattered in her life. Our children, who were 13 and 11, looked confused and hurt as they began to understand what they were seeing. Lisa's parents, who had always treated me like a son, stared at their daughter with expressions of disappointment and disbelief. My own family rallied around me, offering support and expressing their shock at Lisa's betrayal. Friends who had known us for years struggled to reconcile the woman they thought they knew with the evidence of systematic deception and infidelity. Jake Morrison, who had been invited to the ceremony as Lisa's personal trainer, quietly left during the slideshow, abandoning Lisa to face the consequences of their affair alone. Lisa tried to speak, to explain or defend herself, but there was nothing she could say. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. She'd been caught in a web of lies so extensive that any attempt at explanation would only make her look more deceptive. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Lisa moved out of our house that night, staying with a friend while she tried to figure out her next steps. The divorce proceedings were straightforward. With the evidence I'd gathered, Lisa had no choice but to accept a settlement that protected my assets and ensured that I maintained primary custody of our children. Jake Morrison's life was also affected by the exposure. His employer at CrossFit Meridian fired him after learning about his pattern of inappropriate relationships with married clients. His reputation in the fitness community was destroyed, and he was forced to leave town to escape the scandal. But the most satisfying outcome was the impact on Lisa's carefully constructed image. She'd spent years building a reputation as a devoted wife and mother, a successful professional, and a pillar of our community. The slideshow had destroyed that image in a single evening, revealing her as someone who was willing to deceive everyone she claimed to love in pursuit of her own selfish desires. 6 months after the vow renewal that became a divorce announcement, I sat in my home office, reviewing financial plans for clients while Sophie and Jake did their homework at the kitchen table. The children were adjusting well to the new reality of their parents' divorce, and they'd chosen to live primarily with me. They'd lost respect for their mother's deception and manipulation, and they appreciated the honesty and stability I provided. My financial planning business had actually grown stronger after the divorce. Word had spread about how I'd exposed Lisa's affair, and I'd gained a reputation as someone who understood the importance of protecting assets and planning for unexpected betrayals. Clients trusted me not just for my technical skills, but because they knew I understood the real-world consequences of deception and infidelity. Lisa had tried to rebuild her relationship with Jake, but the public exposure of their affair had made their relationship untenable. He'd moved to another state to escape the scandal, leaving Lisa to face the consequences of her choices alone. She'd lost her marriage, her children's respect, her social standing, and the man she'd sacrificed everything to be with. As I worked on developing comprehensive financial strategies that would protect my clients from the kind of betrayal I'd experienced, I reflected on the lessons I'd learned about trust, commitment, and the true cost of deception. For 15 years, I'd believed that Lisa and I were building something lasting together. I'd been proud of our family, our home, and our shared future. The discovery that Lisa was willing to throw it all away for a fling with a predatory personal trainer had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. I no longer had to live with the nagging feeling that something was wrong in our marriage. I no longer had to wonder why Lisa seemed distant or why our relationship felt strained. Now I was building something real with my children, something based on honesty, trust, and genuine care for each other's well-being. The work of single parenting was challenging, but every day was authentic, every conversation was honest, and every success was earned through integrity rather than deception. The notification sound from my phone interrupted my thoughts. It was a text message from a potential client, a woman who was concerned about protecting her assets in case her marriage failed. She'd heard about my experience and wanted to discuss strategies for financial protection. I smiled as I responded to her message, agreeing to meet the following week. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new clients to help, and new opportunities to use my experience to protect others from the kind of betrayal I'd endured. The fitness instructor affair had taught me that some people are willing to sacrifice everything meaningful for temporary excitement and validation. Lisa had thought she could have both, the security of our marriage and the thrill of her affair, but she'd forgotten that deception always has a cost. Jake Morrison had thought he could continue his pattern of seducing and discarding married women without consequences, but he'd underestimated the determination of a husband who refused to be a victim. In the end, their affair had been just another cautionary tale about the price of betrayal and the power of truth. Lisa had declared war on our marriage, and I'd responded by exposing the reality of her choices to everyone who mattered. The fitness instructor had learned that some workouts are more dangerous than others, and some personal training comes with a price that's too high to pay. Lisa had thought she was getting in shape for a new life, but she'd actually been training for her own downfall. The man who had built his career on helping people plan for their financial future had learned to plan for emotional betrayals as well. And in both cases, the key to success was the same: careful preparation, thorough documentation, and the courage to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be.